very shortly, but let's just set the stage a little bit better if we could. First, Palestinian militants abducted more than 100 people in Israel during a surprise multi-front attack in which they killed more than 700, the death toll now 900, making Saturday the deadliest day in Israel's history since the Holocaust. Israeli media said on Monday the death toll had climbed, like I mentioned, to 900. The captives are known to include civilians, including women, children, and older adults, mostly Israelis, but also people of other nationalities and soldiers. Israel's ambassador to the UN, Gilad Erdan, has said dozens of American citizens, largely dual nationals, are among those held captive. Hamas's attack, in which assailants rampaged through the heavily fortified frontier and shot unarmed civilians as they encountered them, has left the Israeli military scrambling to regain control of its territory. Palestinian militants have continued to fire hundreds of rockets deep into Israel. Currently, right now, there are still 10 areas of Israel that are under assault, and we don't know if there are more Hamas terrorists that are hiding in different parts of Israel. As we said, many of the hostages have been dragged back into the Gaza Strip as hostages and as bargaining chips. We would like to take a look at video A2, if we can, for a moment to help set the stage with some visuals.
Hamas gunmen smashed their way through the barrier that Israel uses to contain Palestinians in Gaza. Militants, designated as terrorists by the US, fired waves of rockets into Israel and arrived by sea and even in paragliders. It was a complex and coordinated attack. What followed was a bloodletting. This Israeli soldier was apparently lynched on camera. Civilians were slaughtered on the highways and in the towns of southern Israel. In Sderot, around 2 miles from the border with the Gaza Strip, Hamas gunmen overran the police station, killing dozens. It's now a charred ruin.
Some very difficult things to see, and we do have more videos coming your way, but let's look at one more video first to help set the stage before we go into a bit of discussion. And then others against Israeli towns and villages in the Gaza periphery. He said, quote, "I recognize the legitimate grievances of the Palestinian people, but nothing can justify these acts of terror and the killing, maiming, and abduction of civilians," quote. Like I said, the U.S. State Department has confirmed the death of 9 Americans, very tragically, in Israel as the war escalates between them and the terrorist group Hamas. If we can skip to graphic 11, please. President Biden has spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Sunday and reiterated his unreserved support, according to the Israeli government. Biden directed additional support for Israel, quote, "in the face of this unprecedented terrorist assault by Hamas," the White House said. And Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has also said he has directed the movement of the USS Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group to the Eastern Mediterranean to, quote, "bolster regional deterrence efforts." Quote, "We are preparing for the worst. We know there will be very tough days ahead of us," says political science professor at Al-Azhar University in Gaza City named Makaimar Abu Sada. "But we have been in those circumstances many times in the past 16 years since Hamas has taken over the Gaza Strip. And in the end, it hasn't deterred Hamas. It hasn't stopped Hamas or the Palestinian resistance from fighting Israel." I would like now to show you a few more videos, and warning, these are graphic, but I think it's important for you to see them. We have blurred or used blurred videos where necessary. This is more detailed footage, A4, of Hamas taking hostages from Israel. And please pay close attention to the details. Please pay attention to the state of the woman's pants being pulled out of the Jeep you are about to see. Being taken, that was an elderly woman being taken hostage, as well as other Israelis being dragged into Gaza. The first video, if you noticed, the Israeli woman that was taken by Hamas, her pants around her legs area were all bloody. Presumably she has been raped and is being thrown into that Jeep as well. And the second video was an Israeli citizen being hit with sticks in the back of a truck being paraded around Gaza. Very, very frightening, barbaric videos to see. I'd also like you to take a look at video footage from A5. This is a woman at the music festival near the Gaza border being taken The man's bleeding out, and the member of Hamas then took the hoe. I saw the unedited, uncensored video and tried to behead him by striking him in the neck from behind multiple times. One more video here, A8. This is a child being grabbed hostage by Hamas. Those last two are videos shot and released by Hamas itself. They are proud of these videos. Obviously, you wouldn't release them otherwise. And finally, I would like to show you first the photo of a young woman, an Israeli citizen from Germany named Shani Luke. This is what she looks like. If you can, it's part of the, I'm sorry, I believe it's part of the video, or we don't have the photo, but we don't have the photo, fair enough, my apologies. But you will see the video, permission granted from her mother to show this being paraded around in the back of a truck in the Gaza Strip after being taken hostage and likely killed.
Sorry, we don't.
I'm so sorry we don't have that video. I was told we had the video, but in the video you see a woman lifeless, face down in the back of the truck, and people coming up to the back of the truck and spitting on her lifeless body. Her mother hopes she is alive. There did not seem to be many signs of life in the video, but we pray that she will be found alive and somehow returned. So that's a lot of the facts on the ground, and as Jenk said, the situation is much more complex, so let's get into it.
Yeah. So guys, so the videos we showed you are the ones we're allowed to show you, but Ben is referring to confirmed videos that exist, but we're not allowed to show you. And so that happens normally in wars like this. If you're watching those videos and you're not moved by it, there's something wrong with you. So these are innocent civilians that are getting killed, and it's heartbreaking. Israeli, Palestinian, and you just made them all Palestinian or all Israeli or all Norwegian, they would probably stop killing each other. But no, we got to go with ethnicities and nationalities and titles, and we have to hate each other for no goddamn reason. So, okay. So Israel counter-striking. Of course they're going to counter-strike, right? So no one says that they're not allowed to defend themselves. If they do, that's ridiculous, right? The question is, how do you counter-strike? Already 78 Palestinian children dead. So now you can say, hey, I don't care. Israel can do whatever the hell they want. They got invaded. Well, then by that logic, I would then say, well, the Palestinians were occupied for 50 to 75 years. Can they do whatever the hell they want? So we got to be careful about that logic. I don't think either side gets to do whatever the hell they want. And so I appreciate that Israel would sometimes do those, knock bombs, which are not the real bombs, but give you a warning. It's not perfect. There's tons of civilian casualties that Israel does, but at least it's better than no warning. And right now we're at no warnings. And so, to be fair to Israel, Hamas didn't exactly give a warning here, okay? And so, now that being said, you knock down an 11-story building, there's tons of civilians in there. And so they're all dead. So we showed you the video of the dead Israelis because I don't want anyone thinking that this isn't awful. It's absolutely awful. And this particular conflict definitely started by Hamas. Now, we don't have the videos of the 78 dead Palestinian children, but they look just like those kids.
Well, no, they don't. That is not fair at all, because nobody is slaughtering those children in cold blood. That is covered by Article 28 of the Fourth Geneva Convention, that very sadly and tragically during retaliatory war, there will be incidental death of children, of people who are not the desired target. That is legal, very sadly, but that is legal under the terms accepted of war. What is not legal is torturing, terrorizing, dragging across, taking hostages of children. That is not legal, that is not acceptable. And even though you're right that when you attack other armies, other soldiers, that is legitimate in the eyes of war, what's not legitimate is also the many, many reports of Hamas raping female soldiers that they conquered and then murdering them in many cases, or taking them hostage after that. That is barbaric behavior. That is not covered by any sort of Geneva Convention, not covered by any sort of international norm. And so it doesn't seem at all comparable, while obviously the death of any child is incredibly tragic, when you have to, as you just said, they have to respond. Of course, they have to respond to an all-out war, the bloodiest day since the Holocaust. There's going to sadly be incidental death, but also Hamas always keeps their targets, their missile depots, their missile launchers in apartment buildings with civilians, in children's schools and hospitals, so it becomes nearly impossible to retaliate without the incidental death of children. And Israel holds themselves to a higher standard than America does when we go into Afghanistan or Iraq and kill hundreds of thousands of innocent people, so many of them children, by doing those knock bombs, by dropping leaflets, by calling people's cell phones, by announcing on television, we are coming, go and hide in a part of Gaza away from the border where we're going to be attacking first. That's a higher standard Shield and Arrow, the exact ratio was 1.42 to 1. It was nowhere near 10 to 1 or 100 to 1, where normally it's 3 civilians in typical warfare to 1 combatant. That is a better record. So I'd love to see where you get those numbers.
Two different numbers. You're talking about civilians to combatants.
Correct.
I'm talking about Israeli civilians to Palestinian civilians.
Oh, fair enough. But that's because the Palestinian people, due to their very tough economic situations, and I completely agree that we need to fix the conditions. We need to find a two-state solution. We need to find a way that these people can get their full freedom and human rights, so that they aren't living in a very crowded, terrible living condition and being kept by control of the Israeli military, no doubt. But at the same time, that is the fact of the matter, and they can't ever fix that if they had not elected Hamas, which is recognized as a terror organization by the US, by the UK, by the European Union, and many around the world. Already, I believe 87 nations have condemned these terrorist acts, and they have in their charter that Israel needs to be wiped from the face of the earth and all Jews need to be wiped out of Israel. They do not have any desire for a two-state solution. Once they were elected by a slim margin after, by the way, the occupation ended in Gaza in 2005, Israel straight up said, go ahead and try your own governance. And the next year, Hamas was elected by a slim margin, and then immediately took their enemies who are fellow Palestinians, the PLO, and threw them off buildings and dragged them behind cars dead, and have taken barbaric rule of that part of the Palestinian territories. And so how do you negotiate with people that want you eradicated? There is no
come on,
negotiation.
Ben. All right, so let's start to focus it. So look, there's a lot I disagree with there. So first off, you can say Hamas was elected, so well then, maybe the civilians had it coming. Don't go down that route. We elected Dick Cheney, George Bush, Donald Trump. We did not have 9/11 coming. We don't have any of that stuff coming to us. And Israel elected Netanyahu, who is a terrible warmonger right-winger.
Agreed 100%.
Okay, so do not go down the road of, hey, you elected him, so we kill civilians. No, we do not.
I never said that. I was just telling you.
No, I hear you. I hear you. Okay, now you're right that Gaza's incredibly packed, and so if you show proof that Hamas has hid like a missile launcher underneath a school, then I get it. I wouldn't bomb that school anyway. We could agree to disagree on that, but I blame Hamas 200% if they put a missile launcher in a hospital or a school. Having said that, that is not often proven. Instead, we get generic talking points about, well, they're firing from a crowded area. But there is no non-crowded area of Gaza. There is no like magical area. They don't have, and so it's, and I've seen Israeli Defense Forces literally use kids, Palestinian kids, as human shields. So I've seen, actually I haven't seen Hamas do that, but I would believe that Hamas would do that. But so
use
both
human shields in what way? What have you
like
seen?
they literally use the kid with a gun above the kid. We've shown the video before, okay? So it doesn't mean all Israeli Defense Forces does that. It definitely does not mean that Israeli civilians do that, okay? So look, there is no question about atrocities on both sides. There's no question about that. Is like Netanyahu says something absurd like, well, we're about to bomb the living crap out of Gaza, and we're gonna basically, the defense minister said, we're gonna treat these human animals the way they deserve to be treated. And they talk of a siege and a purge, cutting off electricity, food, and water for God knows how long. So that is definitely directed at the civilians of Gaza, okay? Not just Hamas. There's no question about that either. And that's disgusting. So you can say, hey, they have their rightful vengeance. You saw the tapes. I get the desire for vengeance. And I get the desire to protect yourself, right? And would America do any different? Probably not. Would the country I came from originally, Turkey, do any different? Very likely not. Okay, they would probably do something very similar. So we're talking about humanity here. We're not talking about Israelis or Palestinians. So in that sense, but there is no
occupation.
leaving.
How do you?
Yeah, there is no leaving Gaza. They're not allowed to leave. So Israel never ended the occupation of Gaza. That's a misnomer. They control the ports of entry for on land, sea, and water. It's an open air prison. So you can say, well, I mean, I don't know what you would say. I don't know what you would say. So Ben, look, I can go on and on. So is there horrible anti-Semitism in the world? Absolutely. Is there horrible anti-Semitism from Hamas? Absolutely. From some Palestinians in general?
Yeah, see what I'm doing.
Okay. Is that why they did this? It's probably a contributing factor, and it's very hard to. But say that's the majority factor. But the Palestinians actually don't have a state. They actually don't exist.
Right.
And that's because Israel says that a set 56 to 75 year occupation isn't enough.
Well, no, but that's not true. So my response to that is it's not at all irrelevant whether their official charter of the governing body of Gaza is to annihilate Israel and not negotiate until every Jew's blood is eradicated from the land of Palestine. That's not a partner that you can possibly negotiate with.
Of course it is, Ben. So let me say, I got to jump in on that. Because, Ben, you're not wrong that that's horrific. Obviously, that's horrific, right? But we always negotiate with horrific enemies. That's why so the Hamas leaders are idiots and immoral. So first of all, saying that in their charter is so dumb. It gives people an excuse to continue the occupation, even if you are inclined in the Palestinian direction. And Hamas, what is this attack? You think you're going to win? You're going to butcher a bunch of people. The world's going to hate you. And then Netanyahu is going to punish your own civilians so severely. So it was such a monstrous attack, such a stupid attack in every imaginable way. But bottom line is, you can't just say, well, those guys are the bad guys and I don't like them and they're my enemy, so I'm not going to negotiate. We have to negotiate.
I understand you have to negotiate, but you literally can't negotiate with people who say we will not accept any agreement, any solution. You can negotiate with the Palestinian Authority that is in charge of the West Bank. You can hopefully dismantle and destroy the Hamas leadership and help institute the actual far more reasonable-minded Palestinian Authority under Mahmoud Abbas and try to get them to negotiate a peace. But you say, when is enough occupation? How about the 30 times pre and post Israel's history that a two-state solution has been offered and the Arabs in this area have said no? How about all the times that they have been offered that two-state solution, but they would rather instead keep up this antagonistic stature and posture with Israel? That is when it's enough. When the Palestinian people do not turn against Hamas and say this sort of leadership is not okay, because Israel, yes, it's part right and part not right what you said. The occupation of being inside the Gaza Strip ended in 2005, and yes, they kept control over much of their military. They can military control over them and of their ports. Not all the ports, because Egypt has a port as well there and a land crossing, and that is also not allowed. They also, for some reason, don't allow the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip in there either, without weeks and weeks of applications and going through. So why is that? Their Arab neighbors could let them in too, but this seems to be a group of people in this area that are not wanting to find a peaceful solution to coexist. People, I'm sure, know, but if they don't, when after the Holocaust, just 3 years after the Holocaust, the Jewish people, I'm Israeli, I'm an Israeli American Jew. When the Israeli people were offered to split this area into two, and one be a land for the Palestinians and one for the Jews said yes, the Arabs said no, and immediately thereafter, the Jews were attacked by many countries on multiple fronts, which is what caused this problem in the first place. So when is the occupation enough? When the people who decided they were not going to live peaceably side by side with the people who were just almost annihilated in the worst thing in history, the Holocaust, just 3 years earlier, when they finally say we're going to overlook the titles that you say are so important to overlook, and I agree completely, titles of Israeli and Palestinian. We should get over these history, the history and the biblical stories that keep us at each other's throats and fighting forever. But Israel, I think it's very clear, is far more inclined to do that. 21% of doctors and nurses in Israel are Palestinians from the occupied territories or those living in Israel. There's a Palestinian member of the Supreme Court in Israel. These people are given full rights in Israel, and only those who are who are in the Palestinian territories have to have security forces monitoring their movements, simply because they continually send rockets and tunnels with fiery balloons and then now slaughtering innocent people in the streets. You cannot tell me that Israel has ever gone into the Palestinian territories and slaughtered people and raped people randomly and murdered people and taken old people hostage and taken children hostage. That has never happened. They instead, in the face of that, keep trying to say, we still want to offer peace. We still want to offer a solution.
I went said that in decades.
Not in decades. It's not true in decades. Netanyahu, no doubt, is a warmonger and is expanding settlements. I think that's very stupid and very antagonistic into the West Bank, and that might be part of how they were caught off guard by having more troops removed from Gaza and put in heightened security in the West Bank. But far more, I went and visited myself the Palestinian territories of Ramallah and Bethlehem. I went and visited Arafat's grave out of respect, out of a show of trying to find some sort of common ground and respect for people we even disagree with. And I do not see that same respect coming from people who are living in these territories, and despite horrible conditions that they want to end, and that the Israeli people want to end only if they can live in peace, and they are not granted that. My mom, who's Israeli, I asked her specifically, how do you respond to people who say that if it weren't for the occupation, none of this would be happening, none of these attacks would be happening? And she said, well, on a factual basis, the fact that that is what's causing this anger is true, but if it weren't for the occupation, Israel would not exist.
No, I'm sorry, I love your mom, but I don't agree with that at all. So, and by the way, if Israel ended the occupation, I would hope, and I certainly my sympathy, the sympathy of America and all decent people would completely switch over in every situation to the Israelis. Because then you would say, they gave you your country, you cannot attack the other country. That's the whole point, right? So, now, having said that, look, guys, last couple of things, and then we're going to continue to cover this throughout the show. We're going to have the Republican reaction and the Democratic reaction, etc. But last things here are the Hamas Palestinians having an antagonistic posture towards Israel. Israel, for now a great number of years, has had a grossly antagonistic posture towards the Palestinians, including occupying perspective on the solutions, because everyone loves to say that, oh, people turn down peace solutions. Some of the offers were ridiculous. So now there were a couple of good offers. And did people make mistakes? Absolutely. And so one of the heroes of this whole saga is a guy that I would have never expected growing up to be the hero. It was Yitzhak Rabin. And Yitzhak Rabin was part of some terrible things that happened in the past, right? But, and this is the most important part, but Rabin was willing to get past the old enmities and actually offer a real peace deal, okay? And then he was murdered before they could, by Israeli settlers, before they could get to that peace deal. And that has damned us all. That has damned us all for decades more of this nonsense. But I want you to just think about this, and then we'll come back to the topic after the break, okay? What if Israel was occupied for decades, for 56 years, and all the Israeli citizens there were kept under the thumb of the Palestinians and Hamas? And every time they went to the UN to say, please give us a state, every time they went to go do the X, Y, or Z, they'd say, no, you didn't agree to a peace deal we once offered back in 1987. Ha ha! You Israelis are going to be occupied for the rest of the time. I would be disgusted by that. And I would fight against that with every fiber of my being. So, yes, but the occupation, in my opinion, is a core moral evil we cannot get beyond.
But they, instead of being occupied, are living in terror. They lived through decades in this exact exact same number of years that you mentioned of random suicide attacks, of buses blowing up. A family member of mine was blown up in a bus and has disfiguration all over her face and has to live like that forever. They deal with slaughter in the streets. They deal with having bomb shelters in their homes. My cousin was messaging me on WhatsApp yesterday, and I have an audio recording of her all of a sudden frightened, hearing air raid sirens, having to run down into a bomb shelter and afraid that they're being slaughtered. My uncle had to hide behind a tree last night randomly they're the very lucky ones that weren't slaughtered at a music festival by people that apparently want an agreement and want peace. You cannot end control of a situation. No country on earth would do it. No country that has people coming
in a second.
You would just open your borders to murderers?
No. First of all, Ben, don't do that. So let's end on these two things for this second, okay? So number one, there are no Palestinians or Israelis. They're not a monolith. There's Israelis that vote left-wing. There's Israelis that vote for peace. There's Israelis that are desperate for peace because they don't want to live in the conditions that Ben is talking about. The Israelis are sick of those conditions. They're sick of being terrorized.
That's why they're protesting Netanyahu so much.
And you started those giant protests against Netanyahu. There are no just Israelis, okay? And there's certainly not a monolith of Jews. That is crazy talk. It's anti-Semitic. It is wrong in every conceivable way. There are also no just Palestinians. The evil guys that come across the border and do the terrorism are Hamas and other people that are part of the active fighters. But they're not at all the majority of the Palestinians. And so what would I do? I would do 1967 borders, and I'd build giant walls, okay? And I might even say Palestinians, I know a lot of you have jobs in Israel, and I know this is going to be devastating for you. But sorry, we're going to do no crossing of the borders for a long time. So go call your friends in Lebanon and Jordan and everywhere else, and we got to get you jobs, and I hope the UN will help you, etc. But we're building giant walls, and I would let them go. I would give them their full country.
That's great, and I support that as well. But for the record, you can't have people who are. I think that's a good solution, Jake. I'm just saying, for the record, you can't have people who are attacked and live under fear and then expect them somehow to want to protect themselves. And the that would be much easier to do. And there have been governments in the past in the Palestinian territory that you can negotiate with, and Hamas does not seem to be one.
Yeah, but then you continue the occupation forever. And I cannot stomach it. I will not stomach it. But I want to end on this though. Hamas did their attack this time.
and they did atrocities, and you saw them with your own eyes. So let's not be equivocal about that. That is unequivocally wrong. So, and if you think, well, Israel occupation, etc., all that, we talk about the core causes. That doesn't mean it's justified. There are other ways to handle this, and I get super angry when Israel cuts off peaceful solutions or diplomatic solutions, because I don't want this to happen. But when you do this, you lose the moral high ground. No one who butchers kids or women or grandmothers has the moral high ground. So you're not doing the Palestinian cause any good. You're not doing Israelis any good. You're not doing the world any good. This was horrific, and they should have never started this. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Firebombing Dresden or Tokyo and killing literally burning 500,000 people alive in Tokyo, let alone the nukes, etc. So our governments do terrible things, and oftentimes it's the goddamn leaders, and almost always right wing. And if you say, "Hey, Netanyahu's right wing," don't forget Hamas is massively right wing. Right? There are no left wing Hamas within the Palestinian territories. Okay, so all right. That's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The moral of the story, yes, the quicker we learn this lesson, the more lives are going to save. I couldn't agree more, and it's heartbreaking to see that we never got to learn that lesson. Teddy Cool wrote, "And always good to see Ben bleed." And there's several others that said that. Rye, the Therapy Dragon, wrote in on Twitch, "I hate all of this. So many civilians are going to die." And Paper Dragon wrote, "This is going to be a bloodbath on both sides. No one will win." That is definitely true. Jake Uber-Bengley, Free Palestine 48 just joined, and 420 JR to get to 10 Young Turks memberships. We appreciate you guys. All right.
Squad members Cody Bush and Rashida Tlaib are receiving harsh criticism from fellow Democrats over their responses to Hamas's assault on Israel and the ensuing escalation of violence. Let's start with what Cody Bush stated last Saturday, just a couple days ago. I am heartbroken by the ongoing violence in Palestine and Israel. I strongly condemn the targeting of civilians, and I urge an immediate ceasefire and de-escalation to prevent further loss of life. Our immediate focus must be saving lives, but our ultimate focus must be on a just and lasting peace that ensures safety for everyone in the region. Violations of human rights do not justify more violations of human rights, and a military response will only exacerbate the suffering of Palestinians and Israelis alike, indicating there that she does not think there should be a military response to slaughter in the streets and homes of the Israeli population. She continues, as part of achieving a just and lasting peace, we must do our part to stop this violence and trauma by ending U.S. government support for Israeli military occupation and apartheid, a word that I think is ridiculous to use. And she's literally suggesting that we, in the middle of this horrible terrorist tragedy and attack on the Israeli people, that we end U.S. government support for our ally, our only true ally in the region, Israel. Rashida Tlaib, the only Palestinian American member of Congress, also referred to the conditions in Palestine as apartheid. She wrote, I grieve the Palestinian and Israeli lives lost